There is a secret known only to monks, sages, and those who walk the path in silence. A secret not written in books, but whispered by wind between temple walls, carved in the rhythm of falling leaves. It is this: when something leaves your life, it does not always mean the end. Sometimes it is a sacred detour, a test of silence, patience, and alignment. And when the right moment comes, when the stars breathe in harmony, the return is not a coincidence. It is fate, and it has a date. Tonight, I will speak of the mystery behind why they return after silence, not just with their words, but with their soul, with me, until the last breath of this message. Because if you listen closely, not with your ears, but with your spirit, you will understand the signs, the sacred dates, and how the universe never forgets what is truly meant for you. There is a moment in every seeker's life when the world falls silent. Not the silence of peace, but the silence of absence. One day, someone you cared for disappears, not into the wind, but into stillness. And there you are, waiting, not for a message, not for a call, but for understanding. Many ask, why does he not return? But the wiser question is, what is the silence teaching me? Because everything in this life, even what leaves, carries a message hidden beneath its departure. And often, it is not until all noise vanishes that the universe finally speaks. In the realm of spirit, silence is not emptiness, preparation. Like the earth before the spring, or the breath before the song. This is the divine pause, not a punishment, a sacred pause designed by fate to reset the energy between two souls. A young monk once asked his teacher, "Why do the ones I love always go away?" The master replied, "Because even a bird must leave the tree, so that it may understand the sky. If it never left, it would never know its wings, and neither would you." When someone departs without explanation, sends your mind into a storm, but your soul knows something greater is unfolding, because in stillness, alignment is born, and in no contact, truth finds space to breathe. Observe nature. The bamboo does not grow for the first 5 years. Its roots deepen in secret, unseen by the eye. Then in the 5th year, it rises tall, unshakable, almost overnight. But that night is not sudden. It is the quiet reward of hidden work. So it is with separation. You do not see what is happening behind the veil, but trust fate is not idle, especially in the early days of the month. Between the 1st and 4th, an ancient energy stirs. This window is not random. It is when the soul begins its monthly cleansing. It is when divine timing begins recalibrating the emotional field. Often, it is during these days that the ones we miss feel the farthest, but also when their spirit is being stirred the most. Just as the seed must be buried in darkness before it blossoms in light, your connection is entering a realm of invisible transformation. Let it. For if you chase the seed, you disturb the soil. If you force the bloom, you ruin the rhythm. Patience in this phase is not weakness. There is wisdom. There is a Taoist saying, when the wind is silent, the grass still grows. This means, even when all signs seem absent, something essential is unfolding in secret. A woman, heartbroken from being left without warning, once chose to sit by a river each morning. Not to cry, not to wait, but to breathe. She noticed the river never rushed. It simply flowed. Sometimes slow, sometimes fierce, always forward. And after moons had passed, she found that the longing had softened into clarity. She no longer needed the return to feel whole. And that, ironically, is when the return came. You see, silence gives birth to sovereignty. And fate waits for readiness. No reunion can bloom from desperation. It only roots in stillness. This brings us to a deeper understanding. Why do men return after no contact? Not because they were reminded by a memory, not because that the world showed them your worth, but because the spiritual cycle reached its completion, and the soul, which once ran in confusion, found the edge of its own path and turned back. Energy, like the tide, must go out to come in. And in every man who vanishes, there exists an unconscious seeking, not of the woman's presence, but of his own understanding. When he returns, it is not always for love. Sometimes it is for closure, sometimes for healing, sometimes unknowingly for redemption. But the truth is, he does not choose the timing. The universe does. There is an energetic law that governs all human connections. Like the moon pulls the tide, like gravity pulls the falling leaf, so too does divine timing pull the soul back to what it left unfinished. Between the 9th and 12th of each month, the second portal opens. It is during this period that the heart begins to stir, not yours, but his. It may begin with dreams, unsettling thoughts, a name he cannot shake, a scent in the wind, quiet sound of your laughter rising in places where silence once reigned. This phase is called the echo. It is when the universe begins whispering back the name he tried to forget. A Shaolin story tells of a warrior who left his village in shame after losing a battle. He wandered for years, blaming others, avoiding memory. But one night, as he slept near a temple, he dreamt of the one he had betrayed. He woke with tears on his face, not from guilt, from remembrance, and without hesitation, he began the long walk home, not to be accepted, but to speak the truth. When a man returns after no contact, what brings him is not logic, it is an invisible pull, the soul's magnetism to unspoken lessons. The wise do not celebrate the return immediately, they observe. The same energy that pulls a storm back into the sky can also bring a tornado. So you must ask, is this return aligned with healing, or a test disguised as comfort? Nature provides clarity. When a bird returns to a nest it once left, it does so with new feathers. If it arrives wounded again, the nest is no longer a home, but a trap. This is why your own silence matters. It is not the absence of words. It is the presence of depth. When you do not fill the space with longing, the space becomes sacred. And when he returns, as fate often commands, he will not meet the woman he left. He will meet the one who grew in stillness. A quiet heart is not empty. It is full of discernment. As the days pass from the 1st to the 12th, the energy shifts from emptiness to awakening. Your awakening, then his. But they do not always align. And that is the secret. You are not waiting for his return. You are walking your own path. And if he is destined, the path will merge again. Not by seeking, by symmetry. There is an old monastic saying, soul that returns before it is ripened will rot again in your hands. Let this remind you, reunion is only holy when both souls return from wholeness, not hunger. And so, dear listener, if you find yourself in the space of silence, in the sacred vacuum of no contact, breathe. You are not forsaken. You are being prepared. You are in the quiet temple of destiny's design. Do not knock on the doors of the past. Do not beg fate for timing. Listen, watch, and walk slowly. The soul always knows, and when the time is true, the universe will bring back what is meant, not a moment early, not a breath too late, but exactly on time. There is a language that does not pass through the tongue, a message that does not arrive through sound or sight. It is the subtle voice that speaks from within, when all other voices have grown quiet. This is intuition, not the mind's reasoning, the soul's remembering. Often, when someone we love has vanished into silence, we wait with anxious breath for their return. The wise know, before they return to you, you must return to yourself. And in that sacred return inward, power awakens. The power to hear what cannot be said, to feel what has not yet arrived. There is a tale of a silent monk who lived in the mountains, visited only by wind, stars, and time. One day, a traveler came, Burdened with grief over a lost love, he asked the monk, "Will she come back to me?" The monk poured tea into 2 cups, but said nothing. Then he turned one of the cups upside down and left it empty. The traveler stared in confusion. The monk finally spoke. "When the heart is too full of noise, it spills. Only the empty cup hears when the rain begins to fall. So too with the soul. When we empty ourselves of desperation and fear, we become sensitive to the divine rhythm that moves all things. The moment you stop chasing signs, the signs begin to chase you. It begins subtly, a dream you cannot forget, a sudden memory that tastes like the past, but arrives like a warning, a moment in nature, a bird crossing your path 3 times, a song that finds you at the exact moment you needed to remember who you are. This is not coincidence. This is intuition reaching its hand into your daily life. And especially between the 13th and 15th of the month, this window opens wide. For it is in these middle days that the spiritual realm leans closest to the earth. This is when the soul begins whispering louder than the mind. And if you are still enough, you will hear. In daily life, we've all had moments we call gut feelings. You hesitate to take a road and later learn of an accident. You think of someone intensely and a message arrives. These are not fantasies. They are fragments of truth rising through layers of perception. In matters of the heart, especially, intuition becomes our greatest guardian. When a man who left begins to move toward return, your spirit will sense it long before the message is typed. But that sensing comes not through obsession. It comes through alignment. Just as birds feel the pull of migration without calendar or compass, you too are part of a greater rhythm. There is a wisdom beneath your skin, but it can only be accessed when the outer world grows silent enough for your inner temple to speak. This is why intuition is sacred. It does not show you the future. It shows you what is true right now and whether that truth deserves to stay. A lesser-known saying from the Chinese philosopher Lai Tzu speaks, "Not run after signs. Become the one whose signs are drawn to." Meaning, don't live in reaction. Live in deep listening. The right answers will seek you out like rivers return to the sea. In the still space of no contact, many try to read into every word, every silence, every shift. But this is not intuition. It is fear wearing the costume of clarity. True knowing is calm. Neither rushes nor clings. It simply waits, like the moon waits for the night to rise. When you trust your intuition, you are no longer a seeker. You are a knower. And when the return happens, as it often does, you will not be surprised. You will simply smile, because your spirit already walked that path long before it arrived at your door. But understanding the soul's knowing is only part of the journey. There is another truth just as powerful. You were not simply the one who waited. You were the one who transformed the entire story. In every connection that breaks, there are 2 paths. One flees to escape the truth. The other stands still, becomes the mirror, and reflects what the other could not yet face. That mirror was you. You were not just the beloved. You were the lesson, and sometimes the lesson is too powerful for the student to face all at once. So they run, not from you, but from the reflection of their own unfinished soul work. A young warrior once entered the Shaolin temple, seeking to master the art of combat. But after a few days, he fled. He said, "I came to learn how to defeat others, but all I see are my own weaknesses." The master did not stop him. Years later, that same warrior returned, humbled, bruised by life. This time, he did not ask to learn. He asked to listen. You see, some do not stay because they are not ready to see you. You are too radiant, too centered, too honest. And that is not a fault. It is your role in this life. Some of us are sent not to be loved at first, but to awaken love in another, to remind them of their path. to show them what depth feels like, even if it scares them. Between the 16th and 18th of the month, a new awareness begins to unfold, not in you, but in him. It is during these days that the echoes of your presence begin to stir in his conscience. Not just memories, but understanding. The realization that you were not just someone he loved, but someone who reflected him back to himself. There is a profound dignity in being the one who taught them. Even if you never hear the thank you, even if they cannot yet articulate what you meant, even if they still cannot return in the way you deserve. You were the key that unlocked a deeper door. That key remains powerful, even in your absence. In nature, there are flowers that only bloom when lightning strikes the earth. The shock awakens them. You were the lightning. And though it frightened them, running through the park, it also awakened them. To be the lesson is not easy. It requires you to hold compassion while still honoring your own worth. It asks that you stand tall without bitterness, and that if the time ever comes for their return, you do not shrink to meet them where they once were, but allow them to rise. Khalil Gibran once wrote, "Your pain is the breaking of the shell that encloses your understanding." So too is their pain. The pain of realizing what they left behind, a signal of awakening. If they return, it will not be because you chased, it will be because your presence was so profound that absence became unbearable. Even if they do not return, let this truth remain: you were never empty. You were always enough. You were the turning point in their journey, the reflection that could not be ignored forever. This stage of the journey, from intuition to recognition, is not linear. It flows like a river, back and forth, forward and inward, but every step is sacred. There is a Tibetan proverb: the teacher appears in many forms, as a guide, as a stranger, and sometimes as yourself. And perhaps in this moment of silence and stillness, you are both the teacher and the taught. You are learning the rhythm of your own truth while helping another discover theirs. Let this bring peace to your heart. Let it soothe the longing. And remember, you were never waiting. You were preparing. And should fate align, and the soul who once left returns again, you will meet not as who you were, but as who you have become. Not from need, but from presence. Not to repeat, but to reveal. The journey continues, and you are already walking it with grace. Not every day arrives carrying the same weight of destiny. Some days pass like drifting clouds, unnoticed and without mark. But others arrive like sacred messengers, heavy with energy, pulsing with divine possibility. These are not merely dates upon a calendar. They are spiritual windows, doors between worlds, moments when the seen and unseen speak to one another. In the teachings of the ancients, time was not measured only in hours or seasons, but in moments of alignment, when the heavens whispered secrets to those who knew how to listen. Between the 19th and 20th of the month, such a window opens. The energy shifts, the veil thins, and the winds begin to move in patterns that only the soul can understand. These are the days when fate steps forward from behind the curtain. It may come as a sudden message, a missed call, a dream where their name echoes in your mind long after waking, or an accidental encounter that feels anything but accidental. This is the secret. Not every return is a blessing. Some are tests dressed in the garments of hope. A monk once told a disciple, "There are two kinds of fire. One warms the room, the other burns the house. Wisdom is knowing which one has come to your door." In these potent days, it is common to feel stirred. You may feel a sudden urgency in your chest, a pull toward them, as if their thoughts have found you again, and perhaps they have. Energy knows no distance. But you must ask, what is the nature of this return? Is it rooted in awareness, or is it another echo of avoidance? It is here that discernment becomes your shield, For when the spiritual doors open, both light and shadow may walk through. In nature, just before the monsoon arrives, there is a calm. But the calm is not peace. It is a gathering of pressure. And if one does not read the signs, they mistake the stillness for safety. They leave their windows open, and the storm floods the house. So too with the return of someone who once left. Not all who come back have changed. Some return not because they have awakened, because they have nowhere else to go. You must read the signs not with longing, but with clarity. Pay attention to what your spirit says, not what your wounds hope. There is a story of an old woman who tended a garden at the edge of the village. Each season, the birds would come to feast on her fruits, but she never chased them away. She simply watched them. And after many moons, she learned to tell by the rhythm of their wings which came in peace and which came in hunger. And she chose whom to feed. You too are the keeper of your garden, and not every visitor deserves harvest. Between the 19th and 22nd, watch for synchronicities, but do not follow them blindly. Dreams, symbols, and omens may arise, a specific number repeating, a sudden change in weather, a hawk circling the sky. These are not to be feared, but they are to be interpreted with a quiet, grounded heart. When the wind changes direction, the wise sailor adjusts the sail, but does not abandon the compass. So too must you hold your inner alignment, even when the world outside begins to stir. The Persian mystic Attar once wrote, "Every sign is a mirror, but only the heart washed in silence can see its own face within it." And so it is in these windows of divine timing. You are not simply watching for signs. You are watching yourself to see if you still bend for what once broke you. To see if the path you walk is still yours or someone else's shadow. And if they return, ask not only what they say, how their presence makes your spirit feel. Does it rise or does it shrink? Not every return is fate. Some are loops, and you were not made to walk in circles forever. This leads us gently into the next unfolding, the final preparation of the self. For before any return holds meaning, you must become the gatekeeper of your own peace. Between DSA 23rd and 26th, a sacred pause arrives. The spiritual storm begins to settle, the signs quiet. This is not the end. It is the test before the door. In these days you may feel nothing. And yet, this nothingness is everything. It is the space where you meet yourself again. Not as the one who waited, as the one who became whole in the waiting. A Shaolin student once grew impatient. He asked his master, "When will I be ready for what I desire?" The master replied, "When you no longer desire it to complete you." This is the wisdom of the still moment. You are not meant to prepare for their return. You are meant to prepare for your becoming. Because when you are still, you begin to see with clarity. What you once called love may have been longing. What you once called fate may have been fear's disguise. And what you now carry within you needs no outside source to shine. You are the temple. You are the sanctuary. And the door does not open to just any traveler, only to those who walk in reverence. In daily life, this looks like peace, not absence of emotion, but the absence of need. You no longer check your phone with trembling hands. You no longer wait for signs to tell you your worth. You wake, breathe, walk, and your stillness is your power. The lotus does not bloom because someone looks at it. It blooms because it has risen through the mud, drunk the light, and found its own timing. You are the lotus, and in this final window, you are called not to act, but to allow. If he returns during these days, you will no longer ask, "Will he stay?" Instead, you will ask, "Does this serve my soul's path?" And if he does not return, you will not despair. You will know that you did not wait in vain. You trained in silence. You grew in the shadows. You became the one who no longer needs to be chosen, because you have chosen yourself. The philosopher Chuang Tzu once said, "The true man of Tao walks through fire without burning, because he knows the fire was never outside him." Let this truth settle into your bones. The return is not your goal. The reunion is not your prize. Your presence is the prophecy. Your peace is the power. Your stillness in the face of storms is the final gate that opens all others. Now the journey folds like the petals of a lotus at dusk. The sacred days have been walked, the signs observed, the self reclaimed. And whether the he comes back or not, you are no longer waiting at the edge of your life. You are walking the center. You are the storm. You are the calm. You are the one the universe prepares, not for someone else, but for yourself. And this is the quiet miracle the monks always whispered of. The return was always within. This message is not to bring hope of their return, but to remind you you are the path. They may return, but will you still be where they left you? Or will you have walked the mountain and become the storm they could never hold? Scroll now closes, the winds quiet. The dates have been revealed. The signs will come, ready. For fate is always watching, and what is meant for you will always find the way back, not in your time, but in divine time.